The autumn wind blew along Main Street in Marysville as Joyce Brooks pulled her white Lexus up in front of the Palette Gallery. The 45-year-old woman looked impeccable, as always. Her light hair was neatly styled into an elegant hairdo, her makeup was professionally applied, and her designer suit accentuated her slender figure. In this small town, Joyce was known to everyone as a model of good taste and social status. "Good morning, Mrs. Brooks," greeted Emily, the gallery's 23-year-old assistant, as Joyce entered. "Good morning, dear. How are the preparations for the exhibition going?" Joyce asked, taking off her coat and hanging it on a hook near the entrance. "Everything is going according to plan. Mr. Anderson confirmed that he will bring his new landscapes tomorrow morning," Emily reported, leafing through her notebook. Joyce nodded and walked to her office at the back of the gallery. The walls were decorated with photographs from various events, exhibition openings, charity dinners, meetings with local politicians. In many of them, she was pictured next to her husband, Logan. A tall, distinguished man with graying temples and a welcoming smile, he looked like the perfect partner for a woman of her status. Logan Brooks owned the largest car dealership in the county, Brooks Motors, which his father had founded 30 years ago. Under Logan's leadership, the business flourished. He expanded the dealership, added a service center, and became an official dealer for several premium car brands. In addition to his business, Logan was actively involved in the community, serving on the city council, sponsoring the local high school baseball team, and regularly donating large sums to charity. Their marriage had lasted 17 years, and to those around them, they were the picture of a successful couple. They had a beautiful home in a prestigious neighborhood, a stable income, and the respect of the community. They had no children. Joyce had suffered several miscarriages in the early years of their marriage, and they decided not to try again, focusing instead on their careers and community activities. At 10:30, Joyce received a text message from her husband. "There's a city council meeting tonight. I'll be home late. Have dinner without me." She frowned as she looked at her phone screen. In recent months, such messages had become more frequent. Logan had started staying late at work, going on business trips and attending extra meetings. When she asked for details, he gave one-word answers, changed the subject, or claimed to be tired. "Mrs. Brooks?" Emily's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mrs. Clark is here to see you." Jennifer Clark had been Joyce's best friend for over 10 years. A 38-year-old psychologist with a private practice, she was one of the few people in town with whom Joyce could speak openly. Jennifer had earned a degree in clinical psychology from a state university and returned to Marysville to help people in her hometown. "Hi, Joyce," Jennifer said as she entered the office. She was dressed more casually, jeans, a sweater, comfortable shoes. Unlike Joyce, she didn't feel the need to constantly maintain a certain image. "How are you? You look tired." "Everything's fine," Joyce replied automatically, but then paused. "No, to be honest, not really." Jennifer closed the office door and sat down in the chair opposite Joyce's desk. "What's going on?" "Logan has changed. He's become distant and secretive. He's always staying late at work or going out on business." Joyce paused, searching for the right words. "I'm starting to think he might be having an affair." "What makes you think that?" Jennifer asked cautiously. "Little things. He smells different, not like his usual cologne. His phone is always locked now, even though he never used to lock it. And all these business dinners and meetings." Joyce stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the busy street. "And he's lost interest in me as a woman. We haven't been intimate in months." Jennifer nodded understandingly. In her practice, she often encountered similar family problems. "Have you tried talking to him?" "I've tried, but he either denies that anything has changed or says he's just working hard for our future." Joyce turned to her friend. "Jen, I feel like I'm losing him, and I don't know what to do." At that moment at Brooks Motors, Logan Brooks stood in his second-floor office, looking out the large window at the sales floor below. Salespeople were talking to customers, mechanics were working in the service center, and everything was running smoothly. But Logan's mind was far from business. There was a knock at the door, and Marcus Dennis, the dealership manager, entered. The 35-year-old man was attractive in a sporty way, fit, with dark hair and piercing brown eyes. He had come to work for Logan 3 years ago, after the dealership where he had been working closed due to bankruptcy. "Logan, we have a problem with the delivery of new models. The supplier says there may be a 2-week delay," Marcus said, approaching the desk. "Damn," Logan cursed. "We already have pre-orders for these cars. The customers won't be happy." "I can try to find an alternative supplier, but it might be more expensive," Marcus suggested. Logan nodded, but his attention was not entirely focused on the conversation. He looked at Marcus and felt a familiar excitement that he had been trying to suppress for several months. Marcus was not just an employee. Over the past year, a relationship had developed between them that went far beyond the professional. It had started innocently enough: joint work dinners, business trips, long conversations after work. But gradually, Logan realized that he had feelings for Marcus that he had never felt for other men. Or, more accurately, feelings that he had spent his entire life trying to suppress. Logan married Joyce out of love, but over time he realized that their relationship was based more on mutual respect and common goals than on passion. He convinced himself that this was normal, that mature relationships were supposed to be like this. But meeting Marcus changed everything. "Logan? Are you with me?" Marcus's voice brought him back to reality. "Yeah, sorry. Just lost in thought." Logan shook his head. "Find an alternative supplier. The price isn't as important as the deadline." Marcus nodded and headed for the door, but stopped at the threshold. "Logan, would you like to have dinner tonight? We can discuss the strategy for the next quarter." Logan knew that this wasn't just a business dinner. Over the past few months, their meetings had become increasingly personal. "I can't. I have a city council meeting." Disappointment flashed in Marcus's eyes, but he quickly hid it. "I understand. Tomorrow then?" "Tomorrow," Logan agreed, feeling his heartbeat quicken. After Marcus left, Logan sank into his chair and rubbed his temples. He knew he was playing with fire. In a conservative town like Marysville, rumors about his non-traditional orientation could destroy not only his marriage, but also his career, his reputation, the entire world he had built over the years. Meanwhile, Detective Sarah Hall sat in her office at the Marysville Police Department, reviewing reports of minor offenses. A 42-year-old divorced mother of a 16-year-old son, she had been with the police for 18 years. She started out as a patrol officer, but thanks to her tenacity and professionalism, she worked her way up to detective. Marysville was a quiet town where serious crimes were rare. She mostly dealt with theft, vandalism, domestic disputes, and the occasional drug deal. Sarah knew most of the town's residents personally, or at least by reputation, including the Brooks family. Logan Brooks had an impeccable reputation as a successful businessman, a model family man, and an active member of the community. Joyce was also known as a cultured, educated woman who did a lot for the arts in the town. They were considered one of the most respected couples in Marysville. Sarah had no idea that she would soon be investigating a tragedy that would shake not only the Brooks family, but the entire town. That evening, Joyce sat at home alone, leafing through a magazine and glancing at the clock from time to time. Logan hadn't returned yet, even though it was almost 11. Their home in the prestigious Oakwood Hills neighborhood was spacious and elegantly furnished, the result of many years of joint efforts to create the perfect home. When she heard the front door open, she hurried to the hall. Logan looked tired and troubled. "How was the meeting?" she asked, helping him take off his coat. "Long. Lots of questions about next year's budget," he replied curtly, avoiding her gaze. "Did you have dinner?" "Yes, after the meeting, a few board members and I went to a restaurant." Joyce nodded, but something in his tone seemed insincere to her. "Logan, we need to talk." He stopped halfway to the stairs. "About what?" "About us. About what's been going on between us lately." "Nothing's going on, Joyce. I'm just working a lot. You know that." "It's more than just work," she insisted. "You've changed. We hardly talk. We don't spend any time together. Joyce, I'm tired. Can we talk tomorrow?" He climbed the stairs, leaving her alone in the hallway. Joyce felt a sense of unease growing in her chest. Something was definitely wrong, and she was determined to find out what it was. Joyce woke up on Saturday morning to the sound of the shower running in the master bathroom. Logan was already up, even though it was only 7 in the morning, unusually early for a weekend. She lay in bed, listening to the familiar sounds and trying to remember the last time they had had breakfast together on a weekend. When Logan came out of the bathroom, fully dressed in a business suit, Joyce sat up in bed. "Where are you going so early?" "To the office. I have to prepare documents for a meeting with the bank on Monday," he replied without looking up as he adjusted his tie in front of the mirror. "Logan, it's Saturday. When was the last time we spent a weekend together?" He finally looked at her through the mirror. "Joyce, I'm building a business. Our business. Don't you understand that this is all for us?" "For us? When did we become us?" Her voice took on a note of irritation. Logan turned to her, and for a moment she saw something like guilt in his eyes, but he quickly hid it. "I promise we'll spend time together next weekend. Maybe we'll go to Columbus, go to the theater." After he left, Joyce sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, feeling a growing sense of unease. She had known Logan for 17 years, and he had never been so evasive before. Something was definitely going on, and she was determined to find out what it was. At 1 o'clock, Joyce met Jennifer at the Maple Leaf Cafe in the city center. It was their traditional Saturday lunch spot, a cozy place with home-style cooking where everyone knew the regulars. "You look terrible," Jennifer said bluntly when they sat down at a table by the window. "Thanks for being honest," Joyce replied with a bitter smile. "I'm not sleeping well. I can't stop thinking about Logan." "Tell me more about your suspicions." Jennifer ordered coffee from the waitress and turned to her friend. "As a psychologist, I can tell you that often what seems obvious to us actually has a completely different explanation." Joyce thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "It started about 6 months ago. At first, there were small changes. He started paying more attention to his appearance, bought a new cologne, started going to the gym. I was even happy. I thought he had decided to take care of himself." "That's not necessarily a sign of cheating," Jennifer remarked. "I know, but then other things started happening. His phone, which used to be out in the open, is now always locked. When someone calls, he goes into another room. And then," Joyce paused, looking out the window at the passers-by. "He's changed in bed. He's become distant, as if his mind is somewhere else." Jennifer nodded understandingly. "What about work? Is it really that busy?" "I don't know. He used to tell me all about work and ask for my advice. Now he answers all my questions in one word." Joyce leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Jen, I think he's having an affair." "With whom do you think?" "I don't know. Maybe one of his clients, or a new employee." Joyce shrugged. "All I know is that he often mentions his manager, Marcus. He says how talented he is, how hard he works." Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "Marcus?" "Yes, Marcus Dennis. He's been working for Logan for several years." Joyce noticed her friend's expression. "What?" "Nothing specific. Just wondering if you've considered that the problem might not be another woman?" Joyce frowned. "I don't understand." Jennifer chose her words carefully. "Sometimes, when middle-aged men start rethinking their lives, they may discover aspects of their personalities that they previously suppressed." "Are you talking about a midlife crisis?" "Possibly, or something more fundamental." Jennifer took her friend's hand. "Joyce, I don't want to sow seeds of doubt, but in my practice I've seen cases where men in their mature years have come to terms with their true sexual orientation." Joyce pulled her hand away as if she had been struck. "You think Logan is?" "I don't think anything for sure. I'm just saying it's worth considering all possibilities." The rest of the dinner was spent in silence. Joyce mechanically ate her salad, her mind racing. Logan and a man? It seemed impossible. But the more she thought about it, the more details she remembered. How he never looked at other women, how rarely he initiated intimacy in their marriage, how he had changed since Marcus came into their lives. Meanwhile, at the car dealership, Logan and Marcus were working in the office, sorting through paperwork for new deliveries. They sat close to each other at the desk, and Logan felt the familiar tension that always arose when they were alone. "Logan," Marcus said quietly, putting down the papers. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About us, about what's going on between us." Logan tensed. "Nothing is happening. We're colleagues, friends. Don't pretend. Marcus turned to him. I see how you look at me. I feel the tension when we're together, and I know you feel the same way. Logan stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the empty trading floor below. Even if it is, there's nothing we can do about it. I have a wife, a reputation, a place in society. What about what you really want? What I want doesn't matter, Logan replied sharply. I can't ruin my whole life for what? For being honest with yourself? Marcus stood up and walked over to him. They stood side by side, and Logan could feel the warmth emanating from him. I know it's hard, Marcus continued. I've been there myself. For a long time, I tried to be who I thought I was supposed to be, but in the end, I realized that life is too short to spend it pretending. Logan turned to him. That's different. You didn't have what I have. You're not risking losing everything. What are you losing now? You're unhappy in your marriage. Joyce must sense that something's wrong. Sooner or later, it's all going to come out. At that moment, Logan made a mistake. He allowed himself to look Marcus in the eyes. What he saw there, understanding, acceptance, desire, made his heart race. Marcus, he began, but didn't finish the sentence. Marcus took a step closer. Just think about it, okay? About how you really feel, about what you really want. After Marcus left, Logan sat in his office for a long time, trying to collect his thoughts. He knew he was teetering on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move and his whole life would come crashing down. That evening, Joyce decided to take action. When Logan left for another meeting, she sneaked into his home office. It was a small room on the first floor where he usually worked on paperwork and made business calls. Her heart was pounding as she opened the desk drawers. She felt like a criminal spying on her own husband, but her desire to know the truth was stronger. The top drawer contained the usual office supplies and a few business documents. The second drawer held old photographs, warranty cards, and odds and ends. In the bottom drawer, which was usually locked but was open for some reason today, she found a leather folder. Inside the folder were printouts of emails. Joyce quickly scanned them and felt the blood rush to her face. The emails were from Marcus, and their tone was clearly not businesslike. I can't wait to see you again. Last night was special. I know this is hard for you, but what we have is real. You mean more to me than just a boss or a friend. Her hands trembled as she read line after line. Some of the letters were openly intimate, others full of longing and tenderness. It was becoming obvious that there was a connection between her husband and his employee that went far beyond a professional relationship. The most painful part was that in these letters, she saw Logan as he had never been with her. Passionate, vulnerable, sincere. The emotions he had never expressed in their marriage were pouring out on the pages of his correspondence with another man. She photographed some of the most revealing letters on her phone, then carefully put everything back in its place. When Logan came home at 10:30, she was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. Lying in the dark next to her husband, who now seemed like a complete stranger to her, Joyce tried to make sense of what she had learned. Logan was gay, or at least he had a relationship with a man. All these years of their marriage, he had been pretending, playing the role of a heterosexual husband. What did this mean for her, for their marriage, for their place in society? In conservative Marysville, such a scandal could destroy not only their family, but their entire social life. The next day, Sunday, Joyce tried to act normal, but inside she was boiling. At breakfast, she studied her husband's face, trying to understand how he could have hidden his true nature for so long. "You look strange," Logan remarked as he finished his coffee. "Is everything okay?" "Just tired. Didn't sleep well," she replied without looking up from her plate. "Maybe you should see a doctor? You've been complaining about insomnia a lot lately." The hypocrisy of his words made her clench her fists under the table. He was showing concern for her health while destroying their marriage with his lies. After Logan left to play golf with his friends from the city council, Joyce called Jennifer. "I need to see you, right away." They met in a park on the outskirts of town, where there was less chance of running into anyone they knew. Joyce showed her friend the photos of the letters on her phone. Jennifer read silently, raising her eyebrows from time to time. When she finished, she looked at Joyce with sympathy. "Joyce, I'm so sorry." "So you were right. It wasn't about another woman. Joyce's voice was steady, but Jennifer could see her struggling with her emotions. "How do you feel?" "I don't know." "Angry, betrayed, and relieved at the same time. At least now I know the truth." Joyce sat down on the bench. "Jen, what should I do?" "It depends on what you want to achieve. You can talk to him, suggest therapy, try to find a way to coexist. Or you can demand a divorce. But keep in mind that in Marysville, it will be a scandal. People will gossip and speculate." Joyce nodded. She had already thought about that. In a small town, news like this spread quickly, especially when it involved a couple as prominent as she and Logan. What if I don't hide anything? What if I tell people the truth about who Logan really is? Jennifer looked wary. "Joyce, be careful. Revenge can backfire on you." "This isn't revenge, it's justice. He lied to me for 17 years. He made me feel like a worthless woman when the problem was with him." Joyce's voice took on a steely tone. "Why should I keep quiet and protect his reputation?" "Because you could get hurt too. Think about your business, your position in society." But Joyce wasn't listening anymore. A plan was forming in her head. Logan thought he could continue living a double life, but she wouldn't let him use her as a cover anymore. It was time for everyone to know the truth about the perfect Logan Brooks. Monday began with an unpleasant surprise for Logan. When he went downstairs for breakfast, Joyce was already sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a serious expression on her face. Between them lay a printout of one of Marcus's letters. "Sit down," she said calmly, but there was a hint of steel in her voice. "We need to talk." Logan froze in the doorway, his face turning pale when he saw the document on the table. He recognized it. It was a letter from Marcus, written 3 weeks ago, full of tenderness and longing. "Joyce, I can explain," he began, but she raised her hand to stop him. "Explain? 17 years of lies? Explain how you made me feel like a worthless woman when the problem was you?" Her voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her cup. Logan slowly sat down across from her, realizing that his world was beginning to crumble. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think? Then explain to me what these lines mean. I can't wait to hold you in my arms again. What we have is stronger than any prejudice." She read aloud, looking him straight in the eyes. Logan covered his face with his hands. The moment he had feared for years had finally arrived. "Joyce, please listen to me." "I'm listening. Talk." He raised his head and she saw the despair and shame in his eyes. "I didn't want this to happen. I married you out of love, I swear. I thought I could be the husband you deserve. But I couldn't. I tried. God knows I tried. All these years I've been fighting with myself, trying to suppress these feelings." Logan stood up and began pacing the kitchen. "And then Marcus came along and I couldn't pretend anymore." Joyce put down her cup and studied her husband's face intently. "So all our years of marriage were a lie? Every time you said you loved me, every time we were intimate, it was all an act?" "No," he snapped. "I really do love you. Maybe not the way a husband should love his wife, but you're important to me. You're my best friend, my partner. But not your passion." Silence hung between them, answering her question eloquently. "What are you going to do?" Logan finally asked. Joyce stood up and walked to the window, looking out at their well-kept garden. "I haven't decided yet, but one thing I know for sure is that I won't live a lie anymore. Joyce, please think about the consequences. If this gets out..." "Consequences?" She turned to him, anger flashing in her eyes. "Did you think about the consequences when you used me as a cover for your secret life? When you made me blame myself for our marriage becoming passionless? I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. And you continue to hurt me every day when you pretend." Logan moved closer to her, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "Joyce, I understand that you're angry. You have every right to be angry. But think about more than just yourself. Think about our position in society, our families, our business. Your career on the city council? Yes, that too. If the truth comes out, we won't be the only ones who suffer. Think about Marcus. He could lose his job, his reputation." "Marcus?" Joyce sneered. "Now you're more worried about your lover than your wife? That's not fair." "Unfair? You know what's unfair? 17 years of my life wasted on a man who could never love me the way I deserve to be loved." The conversation was interrupted by Logan's phone ringing. He looked at the screen. It was Marcus. "Answer it," Joyce said. "Don't be shy about me." Logan hesitated, then accepted the call. "Hi, Marcus." "Logan, we're having problems with the new shipment. Can you come in early?" Marcus's voice was loud enough for Joyce to hear. "Now's not a good time." "It's urgent. Customers are already calling." Logan looked at his wife. "Okay, I'll be there in half an hour." When he hung up, Joyce shook her head. "Even now, in the middle of our conversation, he's more important to you. Joyce, go. But know that when you come back, I want to hear the whole truth. Then I'll decide what to do next." At the car dealership, Marcus was waiting for Logan in his office. When Logan entered, pale and distraught, Marcus knew immediately that something was wrong. "What happened? You look terrible." Logan closed the door and sank into a chair. "Joyce knows." "What exactly does she know?" "Everything. She found your letters." Marcus turned pale. "How?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that she knows about our relationship." Logan rubbed his temples. "She's furious, and I don't know what she's going to do." Marcus sat down on the edge of the desk. "Maybe it's for the best. Now you can be honest with yourself and with her." "For the best?" Logan jumped up. "Marcus, do you realize what that means? In a town like Marysville, it's the end of everything. My career, my reputation, my business. What about our happiness?" "What happiness? We'll both be outcasts. I'll lose my seat on the city council, clients will start avoiding the dealership, and you'll lose your job and be forced to leave town." Marcus stood up and walked over to him. "Logan, look at yourself. You've been tearing yourself apart for months. This isn't living, it's existing. But it's my life. I've spent 20 years building it. A life built on lies isn't worth holding on to." Logan turned away toward the window. "Easy to say when you have nothing to lose." The words hung in the air, hurting both of them. Marcus clenched his fists. "You think I have nothing to lose? I'm in love with a married man who's ashamed of our relationship. Every day I go to work and pretend that there's nothing between us. You think that's easy?" "Marcus, no, listen to me. I understand that you have more at stake, but sooner or later the truth will come out anyway. It's better to control the process ourselves." "How? Announce to everyone that I'm gay? Ask Joyce to understand and forgive me? You don't know this town, you don't know these people." At that moment, the secretary walked into the office. "Mr. Brooks, your wife is here to see you." Logan and Marcus exchanged worried glances. "Show her in," Logan said after a pause. Joyce entered the office with her back straight and a determined expression on her face. She was dressed in a strict business suit and looked like a woman ready for battle. "Joyce, what are you doing here?" Logan asked. "I want to talk to both of you," she replied, glancing at Marcus. "I think it's time for a frank conversation." Marcus felt uncomfortable under her intense gaze. "Mrs. Brooks, Don't make excuses," Joyce interrupted. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came to tell you that I know about your relationship, and I want to know what you're going to do about it." Logan and Marcus exchanged glances. "We haven't decided yet," Logan said cautiously. "Then I'll decide for you." Joyce sat down in the chair across from the table. "I have 3 options. The first is that I keep quiet. We continue to pretend to be a happy couple, and you two meet in secret. But that's not an option. I'm not going to be part of this charade anymore." She paused, looking at their tense faces. "Option 2, we quietly get a divorce. I tell people we just grew apart, and no one asks any questions. You and Marcus can continue your relationship, but be careful." "And the third?" Marcus asked. Joyce smiled, but it was a cold smile. "The third is that I tell everyone the truth. That my husband is gay, that he used me as a cover, that our entire perfect marriage was a lie." "Joyce, you can't do that," Logan said anxiously. "I can't? Why not? Because it will ruin your reputation? Your career?" Her voice was filled with anger that she no longer tried to hide. "What about my reputation? For 17 years, I was the wife of a successful businessman, when in reality, I was just a convenient cover. If you do this, you'll get hurt too," Logan warned. "Maybe, but at least I'll be living in the truth, not a lie." Marcus leaned forward. Mrs. Brooks, what if we choose the second option, a quiet divorce? Joyce looked at him curiously. Do you really think you can live openly in Marysville? 2 men, one of whom is recently divorced? We could move. Oh, so we run away? Leave me to deal with the consequences and the gossip? Logan stood up and began pacing the office. Joyce, please be reasonable. If you tell everyone the truth, it will destroy not only my life, but yours as well. Think about your gallery, your clients. My clients appreciate art, not gossip, and those who turn their backs on me because of this were never real friends. What about our families? Your parents, mine? Joyce thought about it. It was a painful question. Her parents lived in a neighboring state and were very proud of her marriage to a successful businessman. Logan's parents also thought they were the perfect couple. Our families have a right to know the truth, she finally said. Especially your parents. They have to accept their son for who he is. You don't know my father. This would be worse than death for him. Then the problem is with him, not you. The conversation went on for another half hour, but they couldn't come to an agreement. Joyce was adamant. She wouldn't keep quiet and pretend anymore. Logan desperately tried to find a compromise that would allow them to save their reputations. Marcus wavered between wanting to be open with Logan and fearing the consequences. As Joyce left, she paused in the doorway. You have a week to decide how you want this to happen, with or without you. If nothing changes in a week, I'll tell everyone the truth myself. After she left, a heavy silence hung in the office. What are we going to do? Marcus asked. I don't know, Logan replied, sinking into a chair. Honestly, I don't know. That evening, Logan came home late, hoping Joyce was already asleep, but she was waiting for him in the living room reading a book. I need to tell you something, he said, sitting down across from her. She closed her book and looked at him expectantly. I'm willing to agree to a divorce. Quiet, no questions asked. We can tell people that we just realized we're better off as friends. And you'll stay in Marysville with Marcus? Maybe. Or we'll move. Joyce shook her head. That doesn't solve the problem, Logan. It just moves it somewhere else. Then what do you want from me? Honesty. The courage to admit the truth, not run away from it. The truth? The truth is that I'm a coward. I'm afraid of being judged, afraid of losing everything I've built over the years. And I'm afraid of wasting more years of my life on a lie, she replied quietly. Logan, I'm 45. I still have a chance to find true love, to build an honest relationship. But not if I keep playing a part in your charade. Logan stood up and walked over to the fireplace, where their photos from various events stood. Happy faces, beautiful smiles. It all seemed like a mockery now. If you tell everyone the truth, it will destroy not only my life, but Marcus's life as well. He doesn't deserve to be the subject of gossip and condemnation. He's a grown man and made his own decisions, Joyce replied. Besides, maybe honesty will set you both free. Or destroy us. Joyce stood up and headed for the stairs. You have 5 days to make up your mind. After that, the choice is mine. Friday, October 13th, was the day that changed Marysville forever. Joyce spent the morning at the gallery, preparing for the opening of a new exhibition the following week. But her thoughts were far from art. The ultimatum she had given Logan was due tomorrow, and he still hadn't given her a definitive answer. Around noon, Jennifer called her. Joyce, I'm worried about you. Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Jen, I'm tired of living a lie. 17 years is too long. But think about the consequences. For everyone. I have, and my mind is made up. After talking to her friend, Joyce sent Logan a text message. Meet me at home at 8 p.m. It's time to make a final decision. At the car dealership, Logan received the message while meeting with potential buyers. His hands trembled as he reread the text. Marcus, noticing his state, came closer. What's wrong? Joyce, tonight everything will be decided. Marcus looked around to make sure no one could hear them. Logan, maybe it's time to just admit the truth. Stop being afraid. That's easy for you to say. You don't have what I have. My reputation, my business, my place in society. But I don't have what you have. The love of someone who is willing to do anything for me. Logan looked at him with pain in his eyes. Marcus, if all this comes out, we'll both lose everything. Not everything. We won't lose each other. That evening, Logan returned home with a heavy heart. Joyce was waiting for him in the living room, sitting in her favorite chair by the fireplace. There was a stack of documents on the coffee table. "What's that?" he asked, nodding toward the papers. "Divorce papers. I hired a lawyer." Logan sat down on the sofa opposite her. "So, the decision has been made." "Mine has. What about yours?" He was silent for a long time, staring into the fire. "Joyce, I can't publicly admit what you want me to. It would destroy not only my life, but Marcus's as well. And it would hurt our families, especially my parents. So you're choosing to lie." "I'm choosing a quiet divorce. We can tell people that we've grown apart, that we're staying friends." "No." Joyce stood up and walked over to the window. "I'm not going to be a part of this deception anymore. Tomorrow I'm calling a press conference." "A press conference?" Logan jumped up. "Joyce, you can't do that." "I can and I will. I'll tell everyone the truth about our marriage, about your relationship with Marcus, about how you've used me as a cover all these years. Do you realize what that means? It will destroy my career, my business, my seat on the city council." Joyce turned to him, her eyes burning with anger. "What about my life, my feelings? For 17 years, I felt like a worthless woman, blaming myself for not being able to keep my husband interested. I never asked you to feel that way." "You didn't? Every time you rejected me, every time you looked through me as if I were invisible, every time you came home and thought about someone else." Logan moved closer to her, his voice filled with desperation. "Joyce, please don't just think about yourself. Think about Marcus. He doesn't deserve to be the subject of gossip and hatred in this town." "Marcus?" She laughed bitterly. "Now you care more about him than you do about me, your wife of 17 years? That's not true." "It is. And you know what? I'm tired of being second in your life. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine." Logan grabbed her hand. "Joyce, if you do this, you're not just destroying my life. You're destroying the life of the man I love." Those words hit her like a slap in the face. "The man you love? Have you ever loved me? Really loved me?" Logan's silence spoke louder than any words. "There's your answer," she whispered, pulling her hand away. 17 years of my life, and you can't even say you loved me. I loved you in my own way. In your own way?" Joyce's voice turned cold. "You know what I think? You never loved me. I was a convenient cover, a way to look normal to society." "That's not true." "It is, and tomorrow, everyone will know it." Logan desperately searched for words that could stop her. "Joyce, I'm willing to do anything. We can try therapy, we can—" "Therapy?" She turned to him incredulously. "So you can change your orientation?" "Logan, this isn't a disease that needs to be cured. It's who you are." "Then what do you want from me?" "Honesty, the courage to admit the truth." "And if I do, then what?" "Then maybe we can part ways like civilized people who respect each other." Logan walked over to the bar and poured himself a whiskey. His hands were shaking as he raised the glass to his lips. "What if I refuse? Then tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll call the local newspaper and radio station. I'll tell them everything, about our relationship, about your affair, about how you cheated not only me but the whole town." "Joyce, you don't understand what you're doing. In a town like Marysville, it's a death sentence. Not just for me, but for Marcus too." "Then maybe you should move to a place where people are more tolerant?" "Move? Leave everything I've built over the years?" "What about what I've built? My reputation will also suffer when the truth about our marriage comes out. But I'm willing to do that for the sake of honesty." The argument continued for another hour. The voices grew louder and the accusations more painful. 17 years of pent-up emotions and unspoken grievances poured out. "You're selfish!" Logan finally shouted. "You're willing to destroy several people's lives for your revenge." "Revenge? This isn't revenge. It's justice. I have a right to the truth." "What truth? That I'm gay? That our marriage was a mistake? You already know all that. But others don't. They continue to see you as a model family man, a successful businessman, a role model. And what's wrong with that? That it's a lie. It's all a lie." At that moment, Logan's phone rang. The screen lit up with Marcus's name. "Answer it," Joyce said. "Tell your lover that tomorrow his secret will be public knowledge." Logan hesitated, then answered the call. "Logan, how's it going? Did you work things out with Joyce?" Marcus's voice was full of hope. "Marcus, it's bad. She's not going to keep quiet." "What do you mean?" "She's calling a press conference tomorrow. She's going to tell everyone about us." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Marcus, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. Logan, maybe this is for the best. We can finally be together openly." "Openly?" Logan laughed bitterly. "In Marysville? Do you have any idea what will happen to us?" Joyce snatched the phone from his hands. "Hello, Marcus. This is Joyce. Mrs. Brooks. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the whole town will know about your relationship with my husband. I hope you're prepared for the consequences." She hung up and threw the phone onto the sofa. "Why did you do that?" Logan shouted. "So he knows the truth, so he can prepare himself. Or so you can hurt him." "Hurt him? What about my pain? I've lived with a man who didn't love me for 17 years. Logan moved closer to her. "Enough. Stop playing the victim. You knew perfectly well that something was wrong with our relationship." I knew? I suspected you were having an affair with a woman. I blamed myself for not being able to satisfy you. And now that you know the truth, you want revenge. This isn't revenge. It's, what, justice? You want to destroy my life in the name of justice? Joyce stepped back, but Logan pursued her, his face contorted with rage and despair. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're not only destroying my life, but also the life of the person I love most in the world." "Did you ever love me at all?" she shouted back. "No!" he yelled. "Never! You were just a convenient cover, nothing more!" The words hung in the air. Joyce turned pale, as if he had hit her. Logan also realized that he had gone too far, but it was too late. "Finally," she whispered. "Finally. The truth." "Joyce, I didn't mean to." "You did, and you know what? Now I have even more reason to tell everyone the truth about you." She headed for the door, but Logan blocked her way. "You're not going anywhere until we settle this." "Get out of my way, Logan." "No, we have to find a solution." "I already have. Tomorrow." "Tomorrow? Nothing!" Logan grabbed her by the shoulders. "I won't let you ruin my life! Let me go!" Joyce tried to break free, but he held her tight. In the struggle, they both lost their balance. Joyce fell, hitting her head on the corner of the coffee table. The sound of the blow echoed in the silence of the living room. Logan froze, staring at his wife's motionless body. Blood slowly spread across the light-colored carpet. "Joyce," he whispered, kneeling down beside her. "Joyce." He checked her pulse, tried to find signs of breathing. Nothing. The next few minutes merged into one nightmarish dream. Logan called emergency services and tried to administer first aid, but it was too late. Joyce was dead. When the ambulance and police arrived, Detective Sarah Hall was the first to enter the house. She saw Logan sitting on the floor next to his wife's body, covered in blood and tears. "Mr. Brooks, what happened?" "It was an accident," he whispered. "We had an argument. She fell." Sarah carefully examined the scene. Overturned furniture, a broken glass, signs of a struggle. It didn't look like a simple accident. "Mr. Brooks, you need to come with us to the station to give a statement." As Joyce's body was taken away and forensic experts examined the house, the whole story began to unfold. Sarah Hall, an experienced detective with 18 years on the force, knew this was going to be a tough case. At the police station, Logan sat in the interrogation room, still in shock from what had happened. Sarah entered with a notepad and a voice recorder. "Mr. Brooks, tell me in your own words what happened tonight." Logan took a deep breath. "Joyce and I had an argument. She wanted a divorce, and I didn't. Things got out of control." "What was the argument about?" Logan hesitated. Telling the truth meant revealing the secret he had been trying so desperately to hide. But now that Joyce was dead, it seemed unimportant. "About our relationship, about how our marriage wasn't real." "What do you mean?" "Joyce found out I had someone else." Sarah wrote down every word. "An affair?" "Yes, with my colleague, Marcus Dennis." The detective looked up from her notebook. In a small town, news like this was sensational. "How long did the relationship last?" About a year. Joyce found out last week. She gave me an ultimatum. Either I tell everyone the truth or she would. And what did you choose? I wanted a quiet divorce, but she insisted on making it public. Logan rubbed his face with his hands. Today she said she's calling a press conference tomorrow. And you had a fight about it? Yes. I tried to convince her not to do it. We both got angry, started yelling, and then she tried to leave. I tried to stop her. We struggled, and she fell. Sarah studied his face. Mr. Brooks, there are bruises on your wife's shoulders that correspond to hand marks. Explain that. I held her by the shoulders trying to stop her, but I didn't want to hurt her. I swear it was an accident. The interrogation continued for several hours. Sarah uncovered the details of the argument, the timeline, the motives. A complex picture emerged. A man desperately trying to hide his true nature and a woman willing to destroy his life for the sake of the truth. While Logan was giving his statement, other officers questioned Marcus Dennis. The young man was in shock at the news of Joyce's death. "Where were you between 7 and 10 p.m. today?" Officer Jenkins asked. "At home, watching TV, reading." "Who can confirm that?" "No one. I live alone." "Mr. Dennis, tell us about your relationship with Mr. Brooks." Marcus lowered his head. "We had a relationship. A romantic relationship." "How long?" "About a year. Maybe a little longer." "Did Mrs. Brooks know about this?" "Yes. She found out last week. She threatened to tell everyone." "How did you feel about that?" "I was scared. In a small town like this, it would mean the end of my career, my reputation. But at the same time, part of me was glad that the secret would finally come out." "Did you see Mr. Brooks today?" "No. The last time we spoke was this afternoon at the office. He said everything would be settled tonight." "What did he mean?" "That Joyce had given him an ultimatum. Either he tell the truth himself, or she would do it tomorrow." The next morning, news of Joyce Brooks's death spread through Marysville like wildfire. Detective Sarah Hall arrived at the office at 7 in the morning to continue investigating the most high-profile case in recent years. On her desk lay the preliminary report from the medical examiner. Cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head sustained from falling onto the corner of a coffee table. Time of death: between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Bruises on the shoulders were consistent with being grabbed by male hands. Traces of skin were found under the victim's fingernails, indicating a struggle. Sarah reread Logan's statement from the previous day. His version was consistent, but the details puzzled the experienced detective. Why would a man who supposedly loved his wife in his own way try so aggressively to stop her from leaving? At 9 in the morning, she called Logan in for another interview. He looked exhausted, red eyes, unshaven, rumpled clothes. The night in the holding cell had been hard on him. "Mr. Brooks, I want to go over the events of last night again," Sarah said, turning on the tape recorder. "You said you tried to stop your wife from leaving. Why?" Logan rubbed his temple. "I wanted us to work something out. Find a compromise." "What compromise?" "You knew her position. She wanted a public admission of the truth. I was hoping to convince her to a quiet divorce, no publicity. And when you realized she wouldn't agree, you decided to use force?" "No," Logan replied sharply. "I didn't want to hurt her. I was just trying to stop her." Sarah opened the folder with photos of the crime scene. "Explain the layout of the furniture to me. The coffee table was in the center of the room, but your wife's body was found by the fireplace." Logan studied the photos. "She was trying to get to the door. I blocked her way. We pushed each other. She tripped and fell backward." "Tripped? Over what?" "I don't remember exactly. It all happened very quickly." Sarah took notes. Logan was starting to get confused about the details, which was a bad sign for his story. "Mr. Brooks, your wife threatened to ruin your career, your reputation, your relationship with the person you love. Those are serious motives for murder?" he interrupted. "Detective, I would never hurt Joyce intentionally. Yes, we argued. Yes, I was angry, but kill her? Never." "Then explain the bruises on her shoulders. The expert says that kind of damage would have required a very strong grip." Logan closed his eyes. "I was desperate. I was holding her, trying to make her listen, maybe squeezing harder than I realized." At that moment, Logan's lawyer, Robert Stevens, a local attorney with 30 years of experience, entered the room. "Detective, my client will not answer any more questions without me present." Sarah nodded. "Mr. Stevens, your client is giving this statement voluntarily." "That's changed, Logan. Not another word." After the lawyer and the suspect left, Sarah met with her partner, Detective Mike Torres, who had been interviewing witnesses. "What did you find out?" she asked. "Neighbors heard screams coming from the Brooks house around 8:30. "What about Marcus Dennis?" "Interesting character. Lives alone in an apartment on the outskirts of town. Neighbors confirm that he was home last night. They saw lights on and heard the TV. But there's one detail." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" "Around 10 o'clock he left. A neighbor saw him get into his car and drive away. He didn't return until morning." "Where did he go?" "He says he was just driving around town, feeling nervous about the situation. But that gives him the opportunity to have been at the scene of the crime." Sarah thought for a moment. "Call him in for questioning again, and check the security camera footage along the route from his house to the Brooks house." That afternoon, Marcus Dennis was back in the interrogation room. "Mr. Dennis, you lied to us yesterday. You said you were home all evening." Marcus lowered his head. "I didn't mean to lie." "Then tell us the truth. Where did you go that evening?" "To Logan's house. I was worried about him. I knew he and Joyce had had a serious argument." "What time were you there?" "Around 9:30. I parked across the street and watched the house." "Did you see anything?" Marcus hesitated. "I saw an ambulance and the police. I realized something terrible had happened." "Why didn't you go over? Why didn't you offer to help?" "I was scared. I thought if they saw me there, they'd connect me to what happened." Sarah wrote down every word. "Mr. Dennis, do you understand that your presence near the crime scene makes you a suspect?" "I didn't kill Joyce, I swear." "Then explain something to me. You had serious motives for wanting her dead. She threatened to ruin your life." "Yes, I was afraid of being exposed. But murder? That never crossed my mind." "Did it cross Logan's mind?" Marcus looked up. "What do you mean? Did he tell you that he wanted Joyce out of his life?" "No, Logan is not a murderer." That evening, Sarah reviewed all the evidence she had gathered. She had two suspects with motives and opportunities. Logan, a husband desperate to hide the truth about his sexuality. Marcus, a lover whose life was threatened with exposure. The next morning, Sarah received additional information from a forensic expert. Fibers that did not match Logan's clothing were found on Joyce's clothes, dark blue fibers from a wool sweater. Sarah checked Marcus's description of his clothing on the night of the murder. He was wearing a dark blue wool sweater. Armed with new evidence, she called Marcus in for a third interview. "Mr. Dennis, fibers from a dark blue wool sweater were found on the victim's clothing. The same sweater you were wearing on the night of Joyce's death." Marcus's face turned pale. "That's impossible. Explain how those fibers got there." Marcus was silent for a long time, struggling with himself. Finally, he raised his head. "Okay, I'll tell you the truth. The whole truth." Sarah got ready to take notes. "I did go to Logan's house around 9:30, but I didn't just look. I went inside." "How?" "I have a key. Logan gave it to me a month ago in case of an emergency." "And what did you see inside?" "Logan was standing over Joyce's body. He was in shock, didn't know what to do. I tried to help, checked her pulse, tried to give her first aid. That's how the fibers got on her clothes." "Why didn't you stay? Why didn't you call for help?" "Logan asked me to leave. He said that if I was found there, it would only make things worse. That people would think we were both involved in her death." Sarah studied his face. "Mr. Dennis, you claim that Joyce was already dead when you arrived?" "Yes. Logan said it was an accident. That they had been arguing, she fell." "And you believed him?" Marcus hesitated. "I wanted to believe him. Logan is incapable of murder." With this new information, Sarah returned to Logan. This time, he was sitting with his lawyer, ready for a serious conversation. "Mr. Brooks, we know that Marcus Dennis was at your house on the night of your wife's death." Logan and his lawyer exchanged glances. "Your client lied to us about what happened that night," Sarah continued. The lawyer leaned over to Logan and whispered something in his ear. Logan nodded. "Detective, my client is willing to give a new statement. But first, we want to discuss the possibility of a deal with the prosecution." "What kind of deal?" My client is willing to plead guilty to manslaughter in exchange for a reduced charge. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Tell me what really happened. Logan took a deep breath. It started just like I told you. Joyce and I had an argument. She wanted to call a press conference, and I tried to stop her. But when she headed for the door, I lost control. I grabbed her by the shoulders, shook her violently, and yelled that I wouldn't let her ruin my life. And she tried to break free, scratched me, screamed. I pushed her. She fell. But it wasn't an accident. I pushed her on purpose in a fit of rage. Silence hung in the room. After that, Marcus really did come. He saw what had happened and tried to help. But it was too late. Sarah closed her notebook. Logan Brooks, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Joyce Brooks. The trial of Logan Brooks became the most talked-about event in the history of Marysville. The entire history of their marriage, Logan's secret relationship with Marcus, the years of deception, and the final tragedy were discussed in every home in town. In the end, Logan was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Marcus Dennis was not charged with a crime, but left Marysville a week after the trial, unable to bear the public condemnation. Brooks Motors was sold, and the Brooks house was put up for auction. The Palette Gallery closed. No one wanted to support a business associated with such a tragedy. The story of Logan and Joyce Brooks became a warning to Marysville about the price of lies, the destructive power of prejudice, and the fact that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than the most beautiful lie.